It was true.
"Nice bunch of guys. Quiet and didn't cause any problems," Ralph said. "They said they didn't want to make a scene this morning and asked me not to wake up any other campers."
Stevie noticed that every campsite they passed contained a tent or trailer, but no curious faces peered out. An unusual sight for an emergency. The next dozen campsites they passed were empty, but on each site's post hung a reserved tag. 100 feet ahead, at the end of the campground, she saw 4 identical tents.
"Why are all these sites empty?" "This group of guys bought them all for the week, even though they didn't use them. Said they wanted some privacy."
She was instantly annoyed. The group must have kept several families from finding a place to camp. The big black Hummer parked next to the new bright blue tents increased her annoyance. Out-of-towners. Campsite rental was cheap, but for some families it was the only affordable means of vacationing. 2 guys stood by the Hummer, deep in conversation as she approached. A child's face peered out of one of the vehicle's lowered windows. "They've got kids with them?" Stevie asked Ralph in a low voice.
"Just the one boy. I believe the dead man was his uncle."
Pity shot through her. He'll never forget this camping trip. The shorter of the 2 men stepped forward and held out his hand as Stevie arrived.
"Thank you for coming."
His hand was damp, and his green eyes were rimmed in red. He'd pulled on a cap over his bleached, spiky hair. A tall, skinny man stayed at the truck, holding the boy's hand through the window. Both men wore spotless, expensive sneakers and Apple watches. The one at the truck had both of his ears pierced. Definitely not locals. Stevie introduced herself. Bleached hair was Josh, and the skinny guy was Spider. "Show me the way." The men exchanged a look, and Spider spoke.
"I'll stay here with Brandon. He doesn't want to get out of the Hummer."
"I'm expecting more officers," Stevie said to Spider. "Can you send them our way when they arrive?" Spider nodded, and the young boy ducked his head out of sight as Stevie smiled at him. She and Ralph followed Josh down a dirt path between their tents and deeper into the woods. Crying Indian was a heavily used campground during the summer. Under the tall firs, the packed dirt ground was scattered with pine needles. Every stick or twig that could be used in a campfire was long gone. They passed trees that had huge sections of bark stripped away, the smooth living wood of their trunks exposed. No doubt the bark had been stolen to burn. "What happened to your friend?" Stevie asked Josh.
"I'm not sure."
She'd originally thought Josh was in his early 20s, but as she walked next to him, she realized he had to be at least 30. He dressed young, baggy cargo shorts and a tank top, no wedding ring. Brandon appeared to be about 10, and she assumed Spider was his father.
"Chase wasn't in his tent when I got up this morning. I didn't think much of it until I'd been up for 15 minutes and he hadn't appeared. That's when I asked Spider and Toby if he'd said he was going somewhere."
"Toby?"
"He's up ahead with the body."
Josh shook his head and wiped his eyes.
"He's a mess. We're all a mess. The 4 of us are pretty tight, and finding Chase like that."
"Had either of them talked to Chase this morning?" Stevie asked, stepping over a well-worn route that crossed their path.
"No. The 3 of us started hollering his name and decided to search."
The Rogue River grew louder as they walked, and Stevie smelled the cool water and damp moss that covered its rocks. "Who found him?"
"Toby."
Josh stumbled, but Stevie didn't see a rock in the path.
"Oh, God."
His voice cracked.
"How did this happen to us?"
Stevie spotted a man up ahead. His hands were shoved in the pockets of his cargo shorts, his shoulders slumped, and his cap was slightly crooked. Where Josh and Spider looked as if they spent a lot of time in the gym, Toby appeared to prefer time on the couch. Stevie noted he wore the same expensive shoes and watch. He was crying and had a difficult time looking her in the eye. Josh and Ralph stayed back as Toby led her past a giant fir, its trunk at least 5 feet in diameter.